Hello and welcome to another installment of From Russia with Minecraft. On this occasion I will be discussing my village with you in greater detail. So, first things first, I want to go over the history of the village a little bit. It's not particularly lengthy or complicated, but as I mentioned before, the game generates non-player character villages at random throughout the map. Now, in a lot of cases, if you're playing on a super flat world, you will see them immediately. If you're playing on a regular map, however, there's a better than even chance of not running into one for a while. Now, I was fortunate enough to spawn not too far south from a village. This area right here where the open square is was the location of the original village. So, um, what happened was the village was home originally to 6 of the NPC villagers and a number of structures, not too large. They're usually simple one-room huts. Some of them generate libraries that have a single room, but it's kind of double-sized. There are also churches and smithies that are generated. The actual NPC village, I might demonstrate one in a later episode, is relatively small and in many cases has fewer than 10 villagers. Now, the what happened to this village is over time, for the most part, I came and visited it once. I went into the farm tiles and then I harvested their potatoes and their carrots for my uh, initial vegetable plantation in my compound. And then I didn't really give much thought to the village, and then at some point I realized, these NPCs, it would be nice to have more of them. You know, silly as it may sound, it makes the game feel um, less desolate when there are NPCs around. So I figured, I'm going to go and I'm going to expand the village and repopulate it because by then what had happened is zombies are very aggressive toward villagers. So zombies, while you're not looking, will come and they will just wreck shop. They will break down doors and they will kill the villagers. So what ended up happening is when I came back here the next time, there were only 2 NPCs left, which is the bare minimum required to repopulate the area. So what I did is I started tearing down the old structures and I started building these newer structures in their stead. So how do villagers work? Villagers spawn based on the number of valid doors in the village. So each valid door basically is a door between 2 pillars of another square, and that has a number of squares under the open sky. Now, the squares under the open sky are considered outside. The squares under other squares, like this roof, for example, are considered inside. For the door to be considered valid, it has to have a different number of open squares on one side than on the other. So, for example, if this door had 5 squares above it here and then another 5 behind it, it would not be considered a valid door. So the math behind it is this. Each door provides enough support for 0.35 villagers, which means that for every 20 doors, you get up to 7 additional villagers. Now, the number is not a discrete one, so you don't have to add 20 doors and then expect 7 villagers to spawn. You can add doors as you go along, and then villagers will spawn to fill up any capacity that your village still has. So as I added doors over time, my village grew from 2 villagers to several dozen. I want to say that, of course, I can't count them manually because they move around a lot. There is actually a mod I used briefly to just get a count on the village. So what I got at that point is that I had, I believe, 97 or 100 or so villagers at the time. So usually the number fluctuates probably somewhere uh, between 70 or so and 110, because what happens is when you're not around, the villagers will despawn, and then when you're around, they realize, oh wait, our part of the world is also active. They start checking for doors, and then they spawn. So that's sort of a brief history of the village and how villagers work. And now for a walkthrough of the actual village. There are 3 major sections in it. This is the residential quarter. These buildings serve no other purpose than to provide population support. They are empty and featureless, and you can actually live inside them if you want. You can put beds, chests, you can equip them with all the comforts of life. However, because the NPC villagers are always running back and forth between these buildings. Actually, you might have heard when I first ventured in here, the sound of constantly opening and closing doors, it makes for rather uncomfortable living, because at worst you're going to have villagers in and out of your building all the time. At best, they're just going to be annoying you with the constant sound of opening and closing doors. So this section I mostly leave alone. I used to have a bit of a base of operations in that small hut over there, and I still actually have a fair few supplies in there, but I haven't been there in a while. The second section of this village is this area right here, which I simply refer to as Market Square. So each of these buildings is styled as a shop, but each of these shops is actually just a storage facility for various blocks. So, for example, as I described in the general walkthrough video, this building is home to is a storage facility for various construction blocks like cobblestone, stone, and stone bricks, and then there are other levels with other materials like regular bricks, sandstone, sand, dirt, etc. This building has glass blocks, glass panes, and glass bottles, as well as the sand that is used to make glass. This building has 2 levels with 8 chests each, housing each of the 16 colors of wool. So each of these is just a storage facility for colorful blocks that may be used to create carpets, or just to create various colorful arrangements like these, for example. The meat shop, pretty straightforward. It's just home to crates and crates filled with cooked and uncooked meat. The bakery, same thing. They're just all the pumpkin pies, the loaves of bread, cookies, and cakes are all in there. Fruit and veggie shop, again straightforward. You have carrots and potatoes, which these can be farmed. You've got the apples, which drop randomly from oak leaves, much like saplings do, but at a slightly different rate. And then upstairs I've got a furnace in which you can cook the potatoes, and there's also mushroom stew and just raw mushrooms. Raw mushrooms by themselves can't really be used for anything other than growing other mushrooms, but they can be combined into mushroom stew. Mushroom stew does provide a good bit of food in terms of your hunger bar, but unfortunately each mushroom stew requires a wooden bowl to make, and takes up a single slot of your inventory for just the one. Like, for example, if you notice, my pumpkin pies right here are stacked to 60. They stack up to 64. But if I wanted to carry mushroom stew on me, I would have to carry a mushroom stew in each of these tiles, and then whenever I consume it, it would then generate an empty wooden bowl, and those stack. But either way, it's not very efficient in terms of inventory space. The third and not quite final but major section of the village is my farming compound. So the farming compound consists of 3 buildings. The first is the livestock tower. Now the livestock tower, as the name suggests, is home to all my livestock. The first 4 levels are devoted to my sheep. There are 16 colors of sheep, and 4 levels, 4 enclosures per level, 16 colors. So this is the light blue enclosure, and each enclosure is marked with its appropriate color. So this one is light blue, this one is yellow, that one is cyan, orange, and then the 3 levels below are also home to a number of colorful sheep. Level 5 is just 4 enclosures of nothing but cows. You'll notice they're incredibly numerous. I breed them for experience, because whenever you breed your animals you generate experience, which you can then collect and then use later in the game. This one is home to my pigs. That's level 6. Also 4 enclosures, all of them dedicated to pigs. And once again you'll notice that they're very numerous, very dense in there. And then level 7, the upper level, is dedicated to chickens. You'll notice again lots and lots of chickens. This isn't even the most densely populated one, but this is one that I recently harvested and then repopulated. You'll notice these items floating slightly off the ground are just eggs. So the chickens lay large quantities of eggs, especially if you leave them alone for a while. And these can be harvested, and you can use them to hatch additional chickens, or you can use them in crafting recipes. So that's my livestock tower. I'm going to go downstairs and give you a brief view of my other two towers, both of which are dedicated to crops. So this tower was the one I built first. It is 11 stories high, 5 of which are devoted to wheat. Once again, you'll notice this is wheat, this is what it looks like. By the way, the texture pack I'm using isn't quite the standard one, it's just a high resolution version of the standard one called 64 by 64 Faithful. I will be linking that in both in this video and on my channel in general. So 5 levels dedicated to wheat, and then I've got 3 more levels dedicated to carrots, and then the 3 top levels are dedicated to potatoes. So here are the carrots that you have 3 levels of, and then potatoes for 3 more levels. There you go. Now, the neighboring tower is home to some of the more exotic, like these are pretty straightforward, they're pretty vanilla. Wheat is quite literally the bread and butter of any farmer in Minecraft. It's easy to grow, you can grow it in very large numbers, and then you can harvest it and replant it. And in general, it's, you know, the yield is good, and you can bake it into bread, you can bake it into cakes, into pies, you can bake it into a number of items. This neighboring tower, however, is home to some of the more interesting blocks. So pumpkins, which are used for pumpkin pies, which is this item right here. Then the level above it is designed the exact same way, but it's dedicated to watermelons. Watermelons drop watermelon slices, which are, they're useful. They're not as filling as most of the other foods. They restore only 1 food unit per slice, as opposed to, for example, 4 for pumpkin pie. However, you can use these if you don't really feel like wasting food. Like, for example, right now I've got 3.5 of my 10 food units empty. If I eat this pumpkin pie, 1/2 of that is going to waste. However, if I wanted to fill it up, say, to 9.5, I could do that with either an item that fills 3 units or the watermelon slices, which just fill 1 unit each. These are primarily for lack of a better term, precision eating. Then these 2 levels are dedicated to sugarcane, which again is harvested and can be made into paper, or it can be made into just sugar, which is in turn used in other recipes. These next 4 levels, 2 at a time, are dedicated to giant mushrooms. Giant mushrooms work in much the same way that regular mushrooms do. When you use bone meal, which is a fertilizer and can be derived from bones dropped by skeletons. When you use bone meal on mushrooms, they have a chance, based on the surrounding free area, to grow into one of these huge mushrooms, and then the huge mushrooms correspond to the mushroom you use. There are red mushrooms, which grow into these big red speckled ones, and then there are brown mushrooms, which grow into the big flat ones right here. The way these work is this. When you harvest small mushrooms, 1 small mushroom equals 1 small mushroom, and it's pretty straightforward. When you harvest the big ones, each of these blocks has a chance of breaking up into between 1 and several of the appropriate mushrooms. So for example, if there are, say, 30 blocks in a mushroom, not every one of those will yield mushrooms, but some of those will yield multiple mushrooms. The general idea is that it's more effective to plant the larger mushrooms because your yield will be higher. This level, these to me have always looked like Chinese lanterns, but they're actually pods filled with cocoa beans. Each of these pods yields 3 cocoa beans, and those can be used either as a brown dye or as an ingredient in chocolate chip cookies. For the most part, for any of you building farms for cocoa beans, you will find that you actually need a very, very small area, because cocoa beans grow and mature so quickly that by the time you're done replanting, like for example, if I were to harvest all of these, by the time I was done replanting all of these, the first of my replants would already be mature and ready to harvest again. So I don't even need the rest of these 3 plots, but I just have them for aesthetic purposes because I don't particularly like mixing and matching things on the same floor. And then this top floor here is netherwort. Now, netherwort is not actually a crop that's used for food, it's a plant that's used for alchemy. Alchemy is something I'll be covering in a later video. Um, Netherwort is harvested in nether fortresses, which are randomly generated structures in the nether, that other dimension I mentioned in this video earlier, and I believe in one of my other videos. The nether is something that once again, I'll be going over in greater detail in a subsequent video, but suffice it to say that the nether is a very dangerous place. It is best to go there prepared with full armor and at least a stack or two of food, torches, and lots of arrows. So this concludes the first part of the walkthrough through the village. My next video will be a walkthrough of the Mushroom Palace alone. It'll be shorter than this video, I expect, but the Mushroom Palace, I believe, deserves its own unique video, just so as not to keep this one running overly long. That said, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video, and you all take care.